Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. This week we have running on our minds, and we'll hear about two great events coming to the area soon, the Kingston Classic and Rock the Ridge. First, it's sculptor Norm Magnusson to talk about a very cool project he has in mind for the New York State Thruway. Hi, Norm.
Hey, Jimmy. How you doing?
I'm all right. So the project you have in mind, now I've for a couple of years, myself and a lot of people in the area have been seeing these, what seem like historic markers. They say, here stood, and then there is a message of sort of political, cultural origin, and it's not really historic. And you go, oh, what? That's not really real. That's you, right?
That's me, indeed.
How did you come to do this? Where did this idea come from? Who are you?
Well, I started doing these in about 2005, I guess. I'm an artist, a painter mostly, and my work over the years had been getting more and more political. Leading up to the 2004 general election, I decided I really wanted to do something deeply political. I made some videos that ran, seen by 500,000 people, that were sort of anti-Bush. After that, I wanted to do more political art, and living up here, you see these markers everywhere, so it was a natural inspiration. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if these markers, instead of talking about famous person who slept here or a battle that happened there, called people's attention to contemporary social and political issues.
One of the ones you made read, Robert Oaknos, who thought that global warming would not affect him in his lifetime. Here stood Robert Oaknos.
Right.
And where did the inspiration from the messages come from?
Well, just reading the newspaper, watching CNN or Fox or whatever, just the news of the day, the events of the day are inspiration for all of this.
How many of these signs have you made so far?
Oh boy, I don't know. I made about 14 of them so far.
And they're all over the Hudson Valley? Have they gone to other places too?
They have. I had a big show a few years back at the Aldrich Museum in Ridgefield, Connecticut. That was nice, and sold a couple to people around there. They've been to California and Florida, and mostly all over the Hudson Valley.
So the cool new project is you want to put one of these historic markers in every travel plaza along the New York State Thruway.
Exactly.
And how many plazas is that?
27, travel plazas, they call them. It's the service area where you can get gas or coffee, and then hopefully a little bit of my message.
So along the way, you're hoping that people in every one of those stops, or as they travel, will see one of these messages. What does it take to get approval for that?
Well, right now I'm engaged in a couple of processes that will hopefully get that to happen. One is what I call snowballing it up the bureaucracy, hopefully getting approvals up to the governor's office. And then after the governor says, okay, yeah, that sounds good, then I will go to the head of the New York State Thruway Association. My proposal is entitled Proposal to Create Arts Tourism on the New York State Thruway. And I've got lots of people who said, oh yeah, I would drive around to see that. So hopefully the state will see that it's not only an interesting art project, but possibly a way to make a few bucks too.
Are you at all concerned about the type of message that are on the signs that you've made, sort of ruffling some of the, because it's the New York State Authority.
It is.
And authority doesn't often like, having their sort of challenges pointed out to them, even if it's in a wry and humorous way.
It's subversive almost by definition. I've taken this format of the historical marker and I'm putting these contemporary issues on them. One of the things that I've done over the years is tried to make them a little bit less purely reflective of my politics and have them reflect wherever I can find an interesting story on whatever side of an issue. So,
the signs look real. They kind of are, right? Tell me about the manufacturing process.
They are. Well, they're cast aluminum and acrylic paint, just like the state-sanctioned historical markers. People say all the time, oh, are they real? I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, it weighs about 100 pounds. I mean, it couldn't be more real, but they're not state-sanctioned. So there's a foundry I work with. They pour the molten aluminum into these molds, paint them, and that's where they come from. So
the Kickstarter campaign will, if that doesn't work out and you don't reach your goal, what happens then?
Well, it's interesting. Kickstarter, I don't know how familiar you are with it. It's a crowdfunding platform, mostly for creative projects. And their idea, which I happen to like, though I'm not really reaching my goal right now, their idea is if you don't raise all of the money you need to make the project, then you get nothing. So it's an all or nothing situation with them. And I like that because, I'm not doing this thing to just have people give me money. I'm doing this thing to have people give me money to make that project happen. So the idea that I'm not going to walk away with $6,000 to just, pay the mortgage or pay the bills or whatever with. It seems to make sense to me. So,
how does it feel to provoke people? I know that you probably get feedback from people who find out, like I did, oh, you're the guy who made that sign.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love hearing the other side of the story. The signs have been very popular on the internet. I mean, they've really gone viral a couple of times over, and people love them. They get posted and shared, and stuff all over Facebook and all over every blog and websites. And sometimes I will see sites where instead of praise, people saying, "Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about." Typical liberal stuff, and he should really pay better attention to the facts, and so on. So it's always interesting to see the other side of the story. But when they've been installed, the reaction has really universally been positive. People stop. The people who read these things, I think, are more united by their curiosity, the world around them, than by partisan politics. So somebody's curious to look at a historical marker, and they look at it and they say, wait a minute, this is on gender wage disparity or global warming. What is this doing here? And they generally seem pretty delighted.
Do you have all 27 messages picked out for when the project comes to fruition?
Oh, I must have like 50 messages done. But couple of the messages that I really want to get done look at issues from both sides. So most of these sculptures are one-sided historical markers, and some of them I'm going to make two-sided. So one side will have one side.
And literally one-sided. It's only the message is only displayed on physically one side of the sign.
Exactly.
As
Actually,
that's
right. What I meant was literally one side. So I'm going to make some with two sides, and they will literally and figuratively have two sides. And one side will be one side of an issue, the other will be the other.
Terrific. Norm, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is Kingston Now, and next we're going to talk about Rock the Ridge, a 50-mile-long running event to raise funds for the Mohonk Preserve. Welcome back to Kingston Now. The Mohonk Preserve is one of the area's most important environmental resources, and here to talk about that and a cool running event called Rock the Ridge is Norman Goluskin. Hi, Norman.
Hi, Jimmy.
So, the Mohonk Preserve is 50 years old this year?
This year.
How did it get started? What's its origins?
Much of the land belonged to the Smiley family, which is the Mohonk Mountain House.
Yeah, they're the people who built the mountain house, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And they decided they wanted to protect that good part of the land, but they didn't need to own that part of the land. So the Mohonk Trust was formed in 1963, which eventually became the Mohonk Preserve.
So they were attempting to preserve that open space on the Shawangum Ridge.
Right. They had a vision that this should be natural, that it should be protected, but that people should be able to access that and not have development on the ridge.
Which is, it's such prime real estate. You can imagine that developers back then and even today were, aching to get their hands on it to put up some nice houses.
I would think that the Smiley family would be a lot richer today had they sold it for development than putting it as a preserve.
The Mountain House is an extraordinary place. Its origins, its story is amazing. How does the Mountain House work with the preserve?
Well, we're actually quite separate, although the president of the Mountain House is on our board. Bert Smiley is on our board. But the two entities are separate. They're a for-profit organization, and we're a not-for-profit organization. So we function quite separately.
How big is the preserve? Is it? Can you describe it in, say, terms of miles or?
Well, it's 7,500 acres right now, and in terms of miles, we probably have about 100 miles of carriage and single-track trails on the preserve itself. And of course, we're next to the Mountain House and we're next to the Minnewaska State Park, and all of those things are contiguous, so you can hike from one to the other quite a few miles.
How much money does it cost to run the preserve each year?
Our operating budget is about $3 million. That's what it costs to just put the lights on, pay the salaries, and things like that. Not the acquisition of land, which we do from time to time. That's a capital expenditure.
So there is staff, there are people who patrol the preserve, right? Rangers.
Right.
There's a very cool research center as well. Mm-hmm. People have been keeping, I think, weather records up there for over 100 years.
That's right.
And all that comes out of that $3 million budget. How is that money raised?
Well, we have several sources of the money. One, we have our members, and they pay an annual fee to use the property as much as they want. We have day visitors, and we probably have 20 to 25,000 day visitors a year, and that depends on the weather as to how many we have. In total, we have about 150,000 people visit the preserve on an annual basis, both members and day visitors.
And that's people who come to hike, to mountain bike, in the wintertime, to cross-country ski or snowshoe, or even to rock climb, right?
Yes, it's the premier rock climbing area in east of the Rockies. We are the most prestigious rock climbing area.
And one of the most historic and legendary, rock climbing in America, I think, started in the Shawangunk.
You might know that better than I do.
I believe it did,
Okay.
yeah. The climbing in the Gunks began, I think, in the late 1930s. And as you noted, it's still one of the primary destinations. If you're going to rock climb in America, you have to climb the Gunks. And for those people, they have to get a pass, right?
Yeah, or either have a membership or a day pass.
And I know there are guiding companies as well who participate in this,
Right.
And I think they also pay you a fee. Is that correct?
Right.
Well, what other ways can you raise money?
Well, donations. We have loyal and generous supporters who give money to the preserve each year to help us with our operating budget and also to help us with our capital budget, so that we can, when the opportunity presents itself, we can protect more land, either by buying the land or giving easements on the land. So our mission is to protect the land. We don't necessarily have to own the land.
And what, in terms of land acquisition, does the preserve have anything in the works right now?
We do. I said we were 7,500 acres. We have almost 20% more in the pipeline to acquire. There's about 5,500 acres in what we call the foothills area, which goes basically down to Route 299, and that testimonial gateway, that old beautiful testimonial gateway, is included, and it goes up Lenape Lane. And there's in the northern Shawangunk, which is near Rosendale, there's land there, and in the Rocky Hill area, there's some land there that we're acquiring to protect, and then make it available for hiking and biking for the public.
You have an event coming up in May.
We do.
It's called Rock the Ridge being the Shawangunk Ridge.
Right.
It's an extraordinary geological feature, and the event is a 50-mile running race?
Well, it's a 50-mile challenge. You can, the basic concept came out of, in 1960, President Kennedy challenged the Marines. Could they still walk 50 miles in 24 hours? So, and they did. And these 50-mile challenges kind of grew up around the country, but then with his demise, they kind of went away. And what you have now is basically 50-mile races, with the courses open 13, 14 hours. Our concept is you have 24 hours to do it. So in theory, you could walk the whole thing in 24 hours. So we have 3 divisions. We have an individual division for accomplishing the whole 50 miles. We have a division of a 4-person team to together do the whole 50 miles. And then we have a 3rd division, which is a relay, and each person does roughly a quarter of the whole course.
So either an individual or team is going to cover 50 miles within the Mohonk Preserve within 24 hours.
Well, it's actually more than the Mohonk Preserve. It starts in the Mohonk Preserve, goes to the Mountain House, to Minnewaska, and turns around and comes back. And it all starts and finishes at that testimonial gateway, that what for us is a brand new gateway, but it's quite old and beautiful.
Are people entering?
Oh, yeah.
Because you hear 50 miles, who's going to do that? But there are people who do that.
Well, it's interesting. We have, at this point, we have about 170 people who have signed up. We think we'll probably end up about 200 people. Most of the people are doing the full 50. I would say at this point, 75 to 80% of all the people who have registered are doing the whole thing.
By themselves?
By themselves.
Wow.
So, and some of those people that I've talked to, it's their first time, and some of them are going to walk the whole thing and expect to be out there 18 to 20 hours.
It's an extraordinary event, and in an extraordinary setting. Thanks for doing all the good work that you do with Mohonk and keeping that space available for people.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Norm.
Okay.
This is Kingston Now. Next, we're going to continue the running theme with Greg Riley, the race director for this year's Kingston Classic. You're watching Kingston Now. The Kingston Classic is a spring running tradition in the area, and here to tell us about it is race director Greg Riley and Joe Fay. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, Greg, you are the race director. Joe, you're with the Kiwanis Club who sponsor the event. I'm going to start with you. Greg, tell me about the Kingston Classic. How long has it been a running tradition in this area?
Well, we're in our 31st year of the race itself. That's the 10K portion. Now we've added on for the 4th year the 2.1 mile, which we try to get for people that don't necessarily want to go out and run 6.2 miles in the middle of April.
It's a wonderful event for a lot of local runners. It does kick off the kind of running calendar. Winter has ended. People are out, getting excited to get out and do stuff outdoors. You get a pretty sizable field as a result. How many people ran it last year?
We had just shy of 1,000 runners last year, and we're hoping to gain about 500 runners this year. We have a few things we've added this year that's going to help us hopefully achieve that. The
course has changed over the years. Nowadays it starts in Uptown Kingston with a little, about a mile loop in Uptown Kingston. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it goes starts off on Front Street, goes up to Wall to Henry, Front to Fair, Fair to Henry to Wall, and then back to Front and down into the stadium if you're a 2-mile runner, and breaks off to the right into Hurley, under Hurley Avenue if you're a 10K runner.
Yeah, I've done the run a bunch, and it's tough when you come through that loop and you see the people who are stopping after 2 miles going into the stadium. You think, oh man, I've got 4 more miles in this,
Trying to make
right?
a decision.
Yeah, it's a great course. Joe, why did the Kiwanis Club get involved? They've been involved for 3 or 4 years now?
This is our 3rd year. What ended up happening was the directors of the Classic at the time, there was a year hiatus that they didn't do it, and they were going to just stop doing it unless they found somebody local to take it under their wing. Greg Riley came to me, I was the president at the time of Kiwanis Club, and asked, is this a project we would want to take off? We were looking for something that we could sink our name to, and this kind of was the thing. So we've been doing this, is our 3rd year, and the benefit for us doing it versus one director is it's so much work, and we have 100 Kiwanis members. So we spread the load over 100 people instead of one guy trying to do the whole thing, and it's been successful for us.
Logistically, Greg, it must be an extraordinary event to pull off because you have to close roads, you have to provide aid stations. How many volunteers do you end up using?
We had last year about 175. We're looking with the addition of the other runners this year to bring in about 200 volunteers, along with, of course, our volunteer coordinator who's behind the scenes getting all this set up, our road course coordinator. We have a committee of probably about 20 people, and each of them have a very integral part of the race to be responsible for.
Well, we're not that far away from the race. What are some of the things that a race director has to deal with in the final weeks before an event like this?
Well, obviously the road closure is the biggest thing. We'll be going out the week before the event and actually giving out notices to all the people along the route to let them know, hey, you might want to have some other plans for about 2 hours on Sunday because these roads are going to be shut down. And of course, the coordination with the fire departments, the police departments, we're going through a couple of different municipalities, so we need to make sure all that stuff is in line and everyone's on point with that. So those are the biggest concerns immediately, and of course then making sure that hopefully all the runners, the volunteers and runners show up the day of to help us out, because without the volunteers and our sponsors and the runners, the race wouldn't obviously be successful.
I know there's been pre-registration going on. Can people register the day of the race?
They can. The actual race day registration actually begins on April 1st. They can still register online for a few days after that, and then once that gets shut down, then you'll have to actually come to Dietz Stadium to register the day of. And of course, the race day fee is a little bit more than the pre-registration, so we encourage everyone to sign up beforehand, and then it also entitles you to get a shirt as well.
And it's a nice it's a nice medium morning, early afternoon start. Is that correct?
Right.
You don't have to get up at the crack of dawn to do this.
Exactly.
Right.
You get up and you can spend some time in Uptown Kingston. Yeah. Come down and pick up your race packet.
What time does the race start?
It starts at 1 o'clock, and we want to make sure that the churches have been let out and we're not having to compete with traffic control there as well.
Terrific. And Joe, anything new for the race that you want to talk about this year?
We've every year that we've done it so far, we've added something new. And this year, what we're intending to do right now is through 721 Media and WebJogger, we have come up with a plan to actually video the whole race from different locations on the course and live stream that to the Dietz Stadium, so all the people that are waiting for their loved ones can watch the race as it's happening.
Yeah.
We're kind of excited about it.
That's intense. People are going to get to see everyone out there slogging along for the 6.2.
So there is no hiding now. You
can't be walking because you might be on camera at some point. And there is some very cool post-race events as well.
Correct. We after the race, we're going to have raffles. What we've done is we haven't done any prize money. In lieu of that, we get raffle items, and every runner that is in the race gets to throw their name in the hat, and anybody could win something. We also added this year that all the volunteers, we're going to have one item for them, and we're going to pull a name out, and they'll win something also to thank them for helping us out also, because we just couldn't do it without them.
There are cheering stations along the route, right, Greg?
Yeah, we call them fan zones.
Fan zones, various organizations who put on this great display. It's as a runner, it's wonderful to go past one because you get motivation from it. But there's a bit of a competition there too, isn't there?
There is. We let the runners. They actually have a little tag attached to their bib. This is strictly for the 10K runners because they get to see all the fan zones. The 2-mile runners do not. So the 10K runners immediately following the finish line will vote for the fan zone they felt to be the most spirited, and we want to, and then they get awarded. So the first prize is $500, second prize is $250, and the third prize is $100 to go to the top 3 teams.
Great. Well, it's a terrific event. A real sign that spring has come to Kingston. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this week's show. Thanks to Norm Magnusson. For more about his work, go to funism.com. Thanks to Norm Goluskin. For more about the Mohonk Preserve and Rock the Ridge, go to mohonkpreserve.org. And thanks to Greg Riley and Joe Fay. To register or volunteer for the Kingston Classic, go to KingstonClassic.com. Remember, all of our shows are now archived on our YouTube channel. You can find that link on our Facebook page. You can also suggest topics for future shows on Facebook. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buck.